He trusted the CIA with his life. The CIA trusted one man with his file. That man had a handler of his own. In the fall of 2011, somewhere beneath the Pacific Ocean, 14 Russian submarines were running quiet. Their routes were classified at the highest level of the Russian Federation. Their acoustic signatures, the unique sound fingerprints each vessel left in the water, were known only to naval intelligence. Their communication protocols changed on a rotating cipher schedule. Even within the Russian Navy, fewer than 30 people had access to the complete picture. One of those 30 people decided to disappear. His name, or at least the name we can use, was Alexei Petrov. He was 41 years old. He had a daughter in St. Petersburg, a dacha outside Murmansk, and a secret he had been carrying for 3 years. He had already decided to defect. He had already made the approach. He had already passed the Americans a sample. Just enough to prove he was real, just enough to make them want more. What he was offering was extraordinary. The complete Pacific submarine patrol grid. Not just current positions, routing data, predictive data. Where the submarines would be week by week, month by month for the following year. The full acoustic library for all 14 active vessels. And the communication protocols, the keys that would allow American intelligence to listen to Russian submarine traffic in real time. For the United States Navy, this was not just valuable. This was the kind of intelligence that changes the balance of power in an ocean. Defections are never clean. They are, at their core, an act of destruction. You are not simply moving from one country to another. You are destroying every version of your life that existed before. Your name, your history, your relationships. Every person who ever knew you becomes a potential threat, to you or to them. Petrov crossed in October 2011. The mechanism does not matter. Those details remain classified. What matters is that he arrived in the United States carrying 2 things, a hard drive and his life. Both were now in American hands. The CIA's resettlement program processed him over a period of several weeks. They debriefed him exhaustively. They verified the intelligence, cross-referencing it against satellite data, signals intercepts, acoustic records from American submarines that had already been tracking some of these vessels. What he brought checked out, every single piece of it. In exchange, Petrov received what the program promised: a new identity, a complete legend, a constructed American life with supporting documentation, credit history, employment records, a house in the Midwest, a relocation stipend, and a single point of contact: a senior case officer named Walter Briggs. Walter Briggs had been with the agency for 19 years. He had handled defectors before. He was known for being methodical, cautious, and professionally cold. The kind of officer who did not get emotionally attached to his assets. He was trusted. He had also been working for Russian intelligence since 2004. No one knows exactly when Walter Briggs was recruited. The SVR, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the successor to the KGB, does not announce its operations. It is possible he was approached after a posting abroad. It is possible the approach was gradual. First a conversation, then a favor, then a payment, then a commitment too deep to walk back from. It is possible he went to them. What we know is the shape of what he built. Briggs was not passing bulk intelligence. He was not photographing files in parking garages or loading dead drops with stolen documents. He was running a selective operation, identifying specific defector files of high value and passing the summary package to his Russian contact. Name, location, new identity, contact protocols, physical description, photographs, everything Moscow needed to find someone the CIA had hidden. His contact was a man operating under diplomatic cover at the Russian consulate. Payments went to an offshore account, small, regular, structured, to avoid the patterns that trigger financial surveillance. The arrangement was described by investigators later as professionally paranoid. Briggs was not greedy. He was not reckless. He had been doing this for 7 years without detection. And then Alexei Petrov landed in his lap. The timing from Petrov's arrival to the file transfer was 6 weeks. 6 weeks for the CIA to build a new life for a man. 6 weeks for Moscow to receive the address, the name, and the photograph of that man, sitting in a house in the American Midwest, believing himself to be invisible. The first attempt was in the spring of 2002. Petrov noticed the car before anything happened. He had been trained in surveillance detection. It was part of his background. Something about the vehicle felt wrong. It had been parked in the same position twice in 1 week. Different days, different times. Same car. He called Briggs. Briggs told him he was being cautious, that it was normal to feel watched in the early months, that the house was secure, the identity was clean, and there was no indication of any threat. 2 nights later, someone tried to get into the house. Petrov was not there. He had already left, trusting his instincts over his handler's reassurances. He had checked into a motel under a different name, using cash. He called Briggs again the next morning. Briggs expressed concern. He told Petrov to stay where he was. He said he would look into it. What Briggs actually did was update the file. New location, new name on the motel record, forwarded to Moscow within 24 hours. But Petrov had already moved again. This is what makes the story almost unbearable to trace in retrospect. Every time Petrov survived, every time his instincts or his training or his luck kept him alive, he reported the attempt to the one person who was engineering the next one. The second attempt came in late 2012. A man asked about him by name at the hardware store in his new town. Petrov found out through a neighbor. He moved within 48 hours. He called Briggs. Briggs updated the file. The third attempt came in 2013. This time it was subtler, a social engineering approach, someone claiming to be from a government benefits office, trying to confirm an address. Petrov refused to confirm anything. He moved. He called Briggs. 3 attempts over 3 years, 3 failures, and each failure reported dutifully to the man feeding the next operation. Briggs, it would later emerge, was not actively directing the assassination. He was simply providing the information and letting Moscow run the operational side. In his mind, and this matters for understanding how people justify the unjustifiable, he was a passive participant. He was just sharing a file. The distinction morally is meaningless, but it may explain why he kept doing it. Why a man who had spent 19 years in American intelligence could keep updating a file he knew was being used to hunt a man down. The 4th attempt was in 2015, and it failed, but not quietly. It was a car bomb. The device was placed under the vehicle Petrov was known to drive. The vehicle registered to his current legend. It was a professional construction. It was designed to detonate when the engine started. Petrov had borrowed a neighbor's car that morning. His own car sat in the driveway for 6 hours before a passing dog walker noticed something beneath it and called the police. The bomb squad rendered the device safe. Local law enforcement handed the case to the FBI. The FBI, following protocol on a device of this complexity, flagged it as a potential foreign intelligence operation. Now there were other eyes on the file. The internal review that followed was not initially focused on Briggs. It was focused on Petrov, on who might have known his location, on whether there had been a security breach, on the possibility that Petrov himself had made a mistake. Had he used an old contact? Had he been recognized? Had he broken protocol? He had not, which meant the breach was inside. Counterintelligence investigations have a particular rhythm. They move slowly at first. Suspicion without evidence is just suspicion. But they widen. They pull financial records. They examine communication logs. They look for patterns across time that no single moment can reveal. The investigators found the offshore account, not immediately, not in one brilliant moment. It took careful, methodical work across several months, the kind of unglamorous, relentless tracing of money through layers of financial obfuscation that defines actual counterintelligence. The account in the Cayman Islands, small deposits, regular intervals, beginning in 2004. A total over 11 years of just over $2 million. They found the Russian contact. They traced the dead drop locations. They identified the communication method, a system of coded messages embedded in the comment sections of obscure online forums, a technique associated with known SVR tradecraft. And they traced file by file which defectors had been burned. Petrov was not the only one. He was simply the one who had survived long enough for the investigation to happen. Walter Briggs was arrested 11 days after the car bombing. He was taken in a pre-dawn operation at his home, not because the investigation required it, but because the FBI had established by that point that he still had access to active files, and every hour he remained free was an hour of potential additional exposure. He did not resist. He did not attempt to deny anything. He asked, reportedly, whether anyone had died. The full accounting of Walter Briggs's operation took years to complete. 4 defectors whose identities he had sold were confirmed dead. 3 deaths had been classified as accidents or natural causes at the time: a car accident, a drug overdose, a sudden cardiac event. They were reviewed in light of the investigation. They were reclassified. 2 more defectors had disappeared entirely. No body, no confirmed status. The intelligence community uses a specific clinical term for this: fate unknown. Petrov was the only one who had survived 3 separate elimination attempts and been in a position to generate the anomalous data that broke the case, because he never fully trusted anyone. That is the quiet, almost unbearable irony at the center of this story. Petrov's survival was not the result of CIA protection. It was the result of his own refusal to stop behaving like a man who was being hunted, even when he was being told, repeatedly, by the man hunting him, that he was safe. His training told him one thing, his handler told him another. He listened to his training. Briggs was convicted in federal court on charges of espionage. He received a sentence of 32 years. He is currently incarcerated at a federal facility. He is 61 years old. The $2 million was never fully recovered. Alexei Petrov was relocated for the final time in 2016. This time, the file contained only 2 names. The 2 people who knew where he was. No case officer in the traditional sense. No resettlement coordinator. No administrative trail. 2 people, a location, and a decision, made at the highest level of the CIA that the safest file is the smallest one. He is, as far as anyone publicly knows, still alive, living somewhere in America under a name that is not his, working a job that is not his history, building a life in a country he defected to because he believed in the value of the information he was carrying, and because he believed, perhaps naively, that the people he gave it to could be trusted. One of them couldn't. He knew that now. And the 14 submarines he had given everything to expose, they are still running quiet somewhere beneath the Pacific. The routes have changed. The acoustic signatures have been updated. The ciphers have rotated 100 times over. The intelligence Petrov carried out of Russia is technically obsolete. But the lesson it left behind is not. He trusted the CIA with his life. The CIA trusted one man with his file. That man had a handler of his own. And somewhere in the dark water, the submarines move. Cold reckoning.